Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. So we're going to talk. We've had a request from one of our listeners to talk about how do we do team meetings?
Yes. How to have a great meeting.
How to have a great meeting. Could be a team meeting, could be a one-on-one meeting. How do you have a great meeting? So you want to kick us off?
Yes. I love this. I have a lot of meetings every week, a lot. So I feel like I can have them with my eyes closed. And in full disclosure, I think sometimes if any of my team members are listening, we do squirrel sometimes and we get off track. But I think it's good to, number one, to have a great meeting, you got to have a great agenda. And to not just wing it, to come in with at least actually some sort of an agenda and get as much done of it as you possibly can. And I think in order to have a great meeting, the first thing is to start with something positive, or a praise, or I always do like a little leadership lesson, or the daily reader from the John Maxwell daily reader, or something like that. And I know we both use something that you're going to talk about, which is the positive focus.
Yeah. I am like most entrepreneurs. I will live in the gap, not the gain.
Yep.
Because we're so on to the next thing so much that it's always good for the things that are not easy for me to have some kind of system in place to make me do them.
Yeah.
And so I'm one of those people that I would be on to what we need to be doing and not what we've actually already accomplished. So this is a big one for me because this is not a natural tendency for me, because I'm so about achieving and what's next we need to achieve that I'm not looking backward at what we actually have achieved. So positive focus is from Dan Sullivan, and it's number one, write down your 5 most important things that achievements that you achieved. It could be, if you have weekly meetings, it could be weekly. If it's daily, then what was the greatest accomplishment yesterday? Could be for a quarter, it could be for a year, depending on how far apart your meetings are. And then you want to write down, why was that achievement important to you? And here's the best one I love is, what's the next step you're going to take with it? Because I think sometimes, and I can't remember the name of the book, I think it's called The Platinum Rule or something. I don't know if that's it or not. But there's a book where, we go off looking for the gold in other places when sometimes they're in our own backyard.
Yep.
And that's what happens here, is we will have an achievement or accomplishment that if we went ahead and followed that accomplishment on to the next place, we could be getting more reward from the accomplishment. So what's the next step that you want to take based on that accomplishment? What would be the next step you take? And then what's the very first action you need to move you forward? And I think sometimes we don't, I think the first step is the hardest. And if you can just go ahead and identify that, it's a lot easier to take that first step.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've gotten a lot better about this year on my teams, just like starting with something that we won. I mean, even if we don't take the time to do the whole positive focus, which we have multiple times, but even if we just start the meeting with who had a great win last week, or tell me something good that happened last week. I mean, I just think we forget things. I always use you as an example and tell people that you forgot you wrote a national bestseller. So
literally could not remember it until I had to sit there for 3 to 5 minutes and write things down. And then I went, what am I doing? I mean, I'm not even giving myself 5 minutes to, think about that, and then think what could we do with that? And because of that, we have to go out and do a lot more stuff that we could actually just take that book and do more with it. So one of the things I think is important about a great meeting is learning how not to waste people's time, because I know if people feel like it's a waste of time, they'll stop coming.
Yeah, such a good point. Yeah, totally agree with that. Yes. Yeah. So we always next, after we start with a win, start with some sort of little quick leadership lesson or a feel good, then we hit straight after that into the goals versus the actuals, just so we can get it, because I want to get to it. We all want to get to it, and we can kind of see where we're at. So we always have our goals of what they are, what for the week or for the month or whatever. And then what will we do for the month, and then what our actuals are that day. And then are we off? Are we behind, or are we further ahead? So like we can relax the rest of the month, what does that look like? And so we always kind of do that next, just so we can like really get to the meat, because that usually is going to take the most time if we're off track.
So let me example what happens if you decide that you're off track. What would y'all do?
So if we were off track, we would say, okay, like, let's say, I'll just use the office, for example. Let's say we're supposed to bring in 10 agents and it's the middle of the month and we've only brought in 2. Then everybody's going to leave with an action item of, okay, what do we need to do so that we can make up for where we are behind? And we just immediately switch to that. If we're like on track, then we go into every team member just as a quick update. Like they've got a minute to just say what an update that they have. Like, somebody would be financials, and somebody's would be appointments, and somebody's would be, whatever else it is, like culture and stuff like that. Everybody does their quick update, and we really try to get that in. But if we're behind, like big time behind, then we're diving into, okay, what does everybody need to do to help get us back on track?
That's good.
Yeah.
You have anything else?
I was just going to say, and then after that, we would do an update, and then we would do like most pressing issues, not things that are like emergencies, but just things that we're working on. So whether it's a client event, party, or something, something like right now for us, it's going to be our Christmas parties, and just whatever the pressing issue is or thing that we're focused on that month. And we just do quick updates on those. And then what do we need to do to make it the best? And I think after exchange, I think that our word of the year next year is going to be unforgettable. So we're going to be moving towards like, what can we just do to make everything that we're doing unforgettable? And then everyone will leave with an action item. And then we just started, Terry had us do this at probably the middle of this year, but one of our big focuses was we wanted to move from good to great. And so she said, like a great coach would say, well, what does great even look like to you? So we all got together and came up with our definition of great. So now at the end of every team meeting, we say, okay, what did we do this week to actually move from good to great based off of our definition? And sometimes, some weeks it's harder than others to think about it. And then other weeks we're like, oh, we did this, and this. And then sometimes we're like, crap, not really anything this week. We put out fires, but at least we're talking about it.
Love it. And I always like forms to kind of help me, because certain things aren't natural. So if someone's reporting to me, it's a one-on-one meeting. I use what we call a 411, which is, what do you need to be doing these 4 weeks to hit this monthly goal, to hit this yearly goal? And I always use Gary's scripts on what were your goals this week? How'd you do? How do you feel about that? Based on that, what do you think you need to do now? And if there were one thing I could do to help you this week, what would it be? And what I love about that kind of format is it's their goals and they own it. And when you're talking to people about their goals, sorry, I got a tickle. It doesn't feel punitive.
Yeah.
These are their goals, not goals I set for them. And so it makes it easier to have these conversations, because sometimes these can be awkward.
Yeah. And it's not emotional when you're doing it. It's not as, it takes the emotion out of it.
And then if I'm reporting and I'm handing a project to someone, I love Dan Sullivan's impact filter, because I have an ideal in my mind, but I don't always portray it very well. So on his impact filter, I'd have to give 6 success clues that this project would be successful, why it's important, what happens if we don't do it. And mainly it's to help me, decide whether it's an important enough idea to hand to someone. And then also gives them a roadmap, if they are going to be the one to do the project, of how will they know what's important to me for it to be considered a successful project.
Yeah. So that's probably one of my favorite worksheets ever. I mean, I'm so glad that you taught me how to use that, because we use it for everything. And even on the flip side, like I knew when you have an idea, just going through that, it's
Yeah.
like, we're either going to do it and it's going to be great, or like, man, no, it's not going to make a difference. And I feel like that is huge, especially for people like us that have a million ideas.
Yeah. And I was kind of thinking of something since we met songwriters when we were at Nashville, sometimes those songs will sit in a drawer for, years before they actually get sang by anyone. So it's the same thing with our ideas. You could actually file them somewhere and they just may be an idea that's too ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I kind of know when I have an idea and it's the right timing, and I can feel it when it's not.
Yeah.
And I either know I have a gap of something I need to know, or I'm not clear on something, or it's just ahead of its time or whatever. So we could probably even file those away like songwriters file songs away, and they become a hit some other day, right?
Yeah, I love that.
And then the KASH talk, I've been using that one with one of the people in a new role that I have, and I really like it.
You love the KASH talk.
Why don't you kind of give them an idea of what kind of questions are on the KASH talk?
Yep, I love the KASH talk. So it's KASH with a K, KASH. And the very first question is, what's the most important thing that you've learned this week? And then from there, you go into the KASH, which is the first thing. The K is knowledge. So what changes have taken place this week in terms of your knowledge? What do you still believe that you need to know to succeed? The third question is the A, which is attitude. What changes have taken place this week in terms of your attitude? And I remember, Linda, when I very first started using this years ago, I was like, why do we care about their attitude? And now I'm like, holy cow, we definitely care about their attitude. Because I've had people say, like, in the 4th or 5th week, like, my attitude is really down. I'm struggling. My energy's low, so it's, how are you feeling? What do you find that you really love doing? What are the things that give you the most energy? And then the fourth question is the S, which is skills. What changes have taken place this week in terms of your skills? What skills do you still need to develop? And then the H, which is number 5, are habits. What are you learning are the habits of someone who's a really high performer in this role? And then the last question is, what area do you have the greatest need for help that I can help you with? And I feel like all those kind of hit everything, and you can do it quick.
Yeah, I love it. And it, like, being on the other side of one and having someone fill that out in a new role, it's really helped me realize places where I could actually help them.
Yep,
when they say certain things, and it also kind of helps me know places where, like you and I talked about needing to remember to not jump in and do things. Well, I might find that out about somebody that I'm working with.
Yeah.
And so that being said, I might need to watch for that. Are they jumping in when they really should be the leader and other people? So I love it. It's really grown to be one of my favorite. And I really like it when someone's new in a new role.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And I think too, like, I've used the KASH talk definitely in a new role. You should always use it. But I've used it too, even after a couple of years where maybe somebody is not performing, like they should be, or something's changed with how they're performing. Or if you even feel like their energy's down or they're not doing as much, just to kind of bring it back out and say, hey, let's just do this for 30, 60 days and really see, maybe you're missing something that you need to know, or maybe it's an attitude problem, or maybe your habits are off, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I always think too, in a meeting, people know when, I think in fierce conversation, they call it the mojito, whatever needs to be talking about isn't getting talked about.
Yeah.
So always asking yourself, what's the mojito? Is there something that, because everybody in the room knows that there's something that you should be talking about that you're not.
Yep.
And so always asking yourself, is there a mojito? Or you could say, is there an elephant in the room that we're not talking about?
Yeah, I love that. And I think actually that's a great point. With when I started, I said, if anybody's listening on my leadership team, sometimes we start with a great agenda and we don't go by that. Yeah. And when we don't, it's usually because of that. It's usually because there's something that we need to be talking about that we either haven't been talking about, or it's just popped up or whatever. And when that's the case, like, we just forget the agenda and we talk about what we need to talk about. Although every time you say that word, I think of mojito. Instead of
is that a drink?
Yeah. And that just makes me laugh, because I think some meetings we really probably need a mojito instead of what we're going.
It depends on how big the mojito is that you need a mojito. Some big mojitos need a big mojito.
That's right.
Oh Lord, I love
Oh
it.
my gosh, I love it. That's
Yeah.
funny.
What do you think about length? What do you think is a good length for a meeting? So that
I
people,
think
shorter the
I think
better, of course.
I think it depends. Yeah, I think if it's like a one-on-one, I think like 30 minutes and you're good to go. I think when we have a bigger team, I mean, we need an hour every week just to get through all of our stuff. But I think it just depends. And then I mean, then we've had meetings with Gary, where they're 4 hours. I think it just depends on what all you have to talk about, or not, but it can't be. I just think you have to be respectful of everybody's time and
Yeah.
stay, stay
And I think
very
the longer ones are when the meetings are spread out. Because if you think about it, his are once a quarter or once a month. So they got to
That's right.
be 4 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're meeting every week,
Yeah.
30 minutes is probably going to be about max you want to do.
Yeah, I do 30 minutes for one-on-ones, and then for the whole leadership team, we do an hour just because there's a lot to get through. And there's, 11 people that have to give an update. So it's just a
Do y'all
lot.
do this daily as a daily huddle? Because I know some people do daily huddles and some people, I know my offices do daily huddles with the whole team. Or are you talking about this as a once a week meeting?
Once a week leadership team meeting, or once a week we have our real estate team meeting. I mean, just once a week. We don't do the daily huddles. We used to. I mean, I think like Chris Harwood does the daily huddles, but I don't do daily huddles with anybody. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. And then I've always heard, if you can remember praise in public, and if you've got something that you want to talk to someone about like a behavioral change, always do that in private.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes if you're a quick starter, you're not thinking, it'll, might come out of your mouth in the meeting, and you never want to, only want to praise in public. And, if you've got something hard or a behavioral change you need, let's then make that a separate private meeting.
Totally agree. Yep, I totally agree with that. I think it is important to go back and let the group know that you've had those conversations, though, because I think sometimes the other members, if they don't feel like something's being handled, then they become discouraged, So I think you always want to like correct in private, or whatever the word would be. But I always at least like to, if there was people who had issues, go back and say, hey, just want you to know that that's been addressed, and we're moving forward. Because sometimes then I think they think like it lingers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the other thing that's important in a meeting is to draw out of everybody to be involved in the meeting, because I think, if you're the leader and you're doing all the talking, it feels more like a lecture. Whereas if each person gets to own, some part of the meeting, then it feels like I always like to remember, person that talks the most feels like it was the best meeting. So who do I want to feel like it was the best meeting? Not me.
Yeah.
So how can I make sure I include them? Plus they own it. And always say the quietest person in the room always has the best answer, but they're going to be the hardest to get it out of them. So they need to go in knowing in advance, to be prepared to contribute.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we literally take the middle, and every person's name is on the agenda, and we just start at the top and go, and every person talks. That way, there's nobody left, to not say anything, because some people always talk more than others, but at least every person gets the opportunity.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Okay. Any final thoughts or ideas around having a great meeting? I think number one, you have to make sure you are meeting.
Yeah.
And I've learned that over the years, and that's a hard thing for me. Honestly, it's kind of like my trainer. I have to make sure it's in my schedule, because, and I think it's a habit that the more you do, the easier it gets and the more benefit you see from it.
Yeah.
I've come so far with my meetings to feeling like I had to be the person that performs the whole time, to, just having people that own their piece. But if you're not having them, you definitely need to have them on a regular basis.
I totally agree with that. And that just reminds me, like Nancy and Heather and I were constantly, we text and talk all day long. So, but then we implemented a few months ago, just a standing every Monday morning, we just get on. And sometimes it's literally 10 minutes and we're like, okay, we don't have anything. And then the next Monday, it might be an hour. Honestly, we keep them no longer than an hour, but it just depends. But now we've just gotten in the habit of it. And I'm so glad that we have, because we save our most important things, because we know that we're getting on that call on Monday morning. And then, like I said, if we don't have anything, we don't have anything. But if we do, we do. So I love that you said that, because just having it is is really important. And then the only last thing I would add is I just remembered this. So I looked it up. On the bottom of our agenda for our leadership team, we have a quote, Go Figure by John Maxwell. And it kind of ties it all in, but it says, growth is not automatic. We have to be purposeful in our growth. We can't have uphill hopes with downhill habits. And so we always kind of just end with that quote, and it's on the bottom. I mean, it's been for years. And I just feel like, because that kind of sums it up. I mean, if we all want to grow, which we do, it's not automatic. I mean, we have to do the actions to actually move us forward to grow. And we have to have the habits to get us there. And I just think being reminded of that is good during any meeting.
Yeah, love that. And my final thought will be this: ask yourself, what meeting should I be having that I'm not having?
Love
a few
that.
months ago, I realized that probably our finance team was the team that was left out the most, because go figure.
Yeah.
Boring, right. But the truth is, I went ahead and put it on the agenda. And even my financial person said to my assistant who started scheduling, oh, I promise you they'll stop having this very shortly. So now I'm determined I'm not going to cancel. I might move that appointment, but I'm not canceling it. But I am looking for better questions and things to make that meeting more fun.
Yeah.
Because it's not a fun meeting to me.
Yeah.
Because it's just boring stuff. But the truth is, I could figure out a way to make it fun, right? I could say, what would make this more exciting? And so because it's on my agenda,
you'll come up with it.
I will start to figure out, okay, this is boring. I don't want to be boring. What else would be fun? What would be interesting? What would make me look forward to this meeting?
Yeah.
Because it's on my schedule. It's not coming off. It's not coming off. So I might as well figure out how to make it a more interesting and more fun meeting, So ask yourself, what meetings are you not having that you should having, or what meetings would make the biggest difference if you started having them?
Yeah. Or what questions could you ask in there that are things that you've been needing to know or something, I don't know, just for you to make it feel like it's good use of your time. Yeah.
Well, one thing I just thought of recently is I think every so often she should remind me of all the automatic things that are automatic renew on my credit card that I signed up for. That would make it interesting to me, because I love achievement. I love figuring out ways to either make more money or save more money. And so that would be interesting to me. And so I've already thought of that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this meeting. I need to think what else needs to be on there. So I'm sure other things will come to me. And plus I'll reach out to other really smart people and say, hey, what do your financial meetings look like? Until I find somebody that's got some good stuff.
Love it.
All right. Well, thank you, Dana. Again, another great topic on how to have a great meeting. And remember, if you have not, please hit subscribe down below. And if you wanted to give Dana and I a great compliment, a 5-star review would be amazing. I just learned the other day that the more reviews you have, the more people will find your podcast. So we really appreciate that. And if you have a comment, a thought, a praise, a question, an opportunity, or a challenge that you would like Dana and I to help you with, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And Dana, thank you. And I'll talk to you again next week.
Yes. And Linda, I was just going to say really fast, thanks to Becky for submitting this question.
Yes. Thank you, Becky. We appreciate it. And I know we've got
this is a good one
that we haven't given. So we'll try really hard to give some of we've got more questions, and we'll also give some of the praises that we've received recently, because we've gotten some good comments in people's praises too. So
yes, we
thank
have.
you guys for those. And we do appreciate them when you send them in to us.
That's true. Yes. Well, I'll see you in Austin.
Awesome. See you there.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.